Welcome to the show. Geek Insider presents Into the Geekverse, the place to get an inside look at movies, comics, games, tech, and everything exciting going on in the Geekverse. Join Matthew Harris and David King as they take a deeper look at the good, the bad, and the downright terrible things our Geekverse has to offer. With live chat, geek news, special guests, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and join us for a peek into the Geekverse.
I freaking love that intro. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Into the Geekverse. As you can see, I'm by my lonesome. David is out tonight with a few technical difficulties. He'll be back next week. But I want to welcome you all to the show tonight. We're going to discuss, and I don't know how long the show is going to go on because I kind of depend on the bouncing off of things with David, and there are some things that he has seen and done that I have not. But tonight we're going to discuss some of James Gunn's lesser known movies, whether he's written them, directed them, or done the script for. There's a couple of them that's happened with. And of course, you know, everybody knows James Gunn, or most people know James Gunn, based off of the Guardians of the Galaxies, 1, 2, and 3. He was the writer and the director of them. At least that's his most recent stuff. And let me get to where I wanted to be. The Guardians of the Galaxy is a huge franchise. He was actually kind of fired after the second one, or maybe I'm getting it mixed up. After the first one, and fans hollered out and they brought him back for the next one. And what's funny is, you know, a lot of people think that Guardians of the Galaxy was his first foray into the superhero genre. And that's not true at all. He's actually been hitting that genre for a few years with his own unique storylines. And man, several of these movies we're going to discuss tonight, I've seen. And that a couple of them, I had no freaking clue that James Gunn was involved with them. I was fans of them. I have become recent fan of another one. But I think you'll be in for a little surprise, because not only does he do the superhero stuff, he's also dabbled rather deeply into the horror genre. Some of them, again, that I've seen, and then some of them that I haven't, that while doing research for the show tonight, I came across, and I did some research on and decided that, yep, I'll be watching those pretty darn soon. But, you know, one thing that I didn't know was that he created, or not created, let me pull my notes up here to make sure. He was writer, director, and creator for TV, the Peacemaker, and which is DC. Guardians of the Galaxy is Marvel, Peacemaker is DC, and it kind of makes sense because James Gunn did direct, and I got to keep my notes pulled up. He wrote and directed the Suicide Squad. And then, of course, Peacemaker was in it. So it just kind of stands to reason that he'd be writing and directing Peacemaker. And I'm kind of going in order, folks, from most recent to the older ones. Some of them are out of order. I tried to keep them in order as best as I could. But IMDb, you know, Peacemaker has been renewed for a second season. We don't know when it's coming out. But it doesn't say, I can't find anything that confirms or denies that James Gunn is going to be involved with season 2. There, of course, is no new news on another Suicide Squad. You know, this one got mixed reviews in the theater. I personally liked it. There was there could have been better things in it. But to me, it was a decent comic book adaptation. I mean, compared to some of the other stuff that DC has put out, It didn't suck all that much. But those are the most recent ones. And then this next one is one that David and I covered a couple of weeks ago, and I forget the name of the episode and which number it was, but we discussed movies that you probably haven't seen. And this is the Bellco Experiment. And there you see, this isn't an actual poster. Folks, if you're tuning in on the podcast, of course, you're not seeing the images, but I'm talking about the Belko Experiment. And he wrote this, and his brother, which is, you'll recognize him from Guardians of the Galaxy, is Sean Gunn. And he stars in the Belko Experiment as one of the crazy people, but he was also a part of this. And James Gunn has actually said that he definitely had an idea for 2 more entries of the Belko Experiment, because as I'll discuss in a minute, it ends with there has to be a sequel. There's more to the story. And he confirmed that there is at least 2 more stories in his head. And he said, if the people want the sequel, I'll give them the sequel. So if you have not seen the Belko Experiment, let me tell you a little bit about it. It's not a superhero story. It's an action, horror, thriller kind of thing. And what a bunch of American workers, I believe it's in Colombia. I'd have to look at my notes from the last show. But they arrived to work, and all of a sudden there's new guards there. They're sending away the locals. They're only letting the Americans into work. They get in there. They think it's just a regular work day. All of a sudden, an announcement comes over, and it says that you have X amount of time to kill X amount of people there that are left. All these shades come down, or protective shields basically over the windows, the doors. They're locked in. They can't do a damn thing. And it's kind of a interesting look on the human psyche, because they it shows the demise of civilization, basically, on what people will do to survive. And then every little bit they come on and they say over the loudspeaker, you've got this amount of time to kill this many people. If not, this amount of people is going to die. And I don't want to give too much away on what happens if they don't kill those people. But I love a unique storyline. And this was one of those that sucked me in. I had no idea it was James Gunn. I watched this a few years ago. I turned David onto it when he was down here for the convention a couple of weeks ago. Him and I sat his girlfriend down and had her watch it. She enjoyed it. I truly believe that you'll enjoy it. It's called the Belko, Belko Experiment, and it's written by James Gunn. Now, the next one I did not know about until we kind of touched on I don't know which one he was talking about there, Jason, but thanks for joining. He said, badass movie. I'm not sure which one because I'm running the show by myself tonight. But Jason, yes, Belko, Belko. Thanks for tuning in tonight. So if you do comment in the YouTube chat room, folks, it might take me a few minutes because I'm having to have up my script and the whole 9 yards. I don't have David taking some of the time off of my head. And so, but anyway, this next one I discovered once that I figured out that James Gunn had done the Belko Experiment. I was like, well, what else could he have done? And I pulled it up, and this one is called Super. And it's just kind of how it sounds. Couldn't find a full screen version of this, so excuse me. But as you can see, he's in a superhero mask, and there's somebody else in a superhero mask. And if you look down, man, that is none other than Liv Tyler, who doesn't have a mask on. And oh boy, that is the main star. It's Rainn Wilson, none other than Dwight from The Office. And what's really funny is I've never watched a single episode of The Office until today. My wife turned on. I have refused to watch it until I can watch it from the beginning. And because I didn't get into it when it all dropped, and everybody has told me I should check it out. I'm going to check it out. I've just got to be able to start from the beginning. What I saw today, I love. But anyway, he's Dwight from The Office. He's an everyday guy, and Liv Tyler is his girlfriend, and she gets sucked into drugs. She starts doing drugs and her dealer is this rich son of a bitch that's played by none other than Kevin Bacon. And he plays a great prick in this, folks. And man, I can't even think of the main character's name, and I didn't jot it down. But Rainn Wilson, he decides he's going to start going after criminals and stopping crime. Don't do crime. That's his little thing. Don't deal drugs. But he's an ordinary guy. There's no such thing as superheroes. He goes to a comic book store to figure out what he's going to do. He wants comic books that are folks without superpowers. And so he's kind of laying his roadmap out for or buy comic books. And he meets this young girl there. And oh man, I should have wrote this one down. And I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not even going to try, and I can't look it up, but without going radio silent for a second. But he meets this young lady, and she's all off into it. She starts loving the stories. She figures out that he is the superhero, so to say. And he starts going after everybody, but he uses what he has. And a lot of the times what he has is a fucking monkey wrench. And I don't want to spoil anything. It's campy fun, guys. And I don't want to say campy because there's some other really campy stuff that James Gunn has done. But Super, and you might want to look it up by Super Movie or Super the Movie. I couldn't get it on Movies Anywhere. I believe I got it on Prime. I'm pretty sure I got it on Prime because when I heard about it and then I watched the trailer, I had to see it, and it's definitely worth the watch. It's only a few bucks. I wouldn't have spent more than $8-9 on it, but I'm glad I added it to my collection. Now, next up, as far as the chronological order goes back in time, is a video game. Now, this is one I was hoping to get David's feedback on because I don't know if he ever played it or not. I know they're doing a remake of that's due out next year. Unfortunately, James Gunn, or not unfortunately, but well, unfortunately, because this game had some popularity at the time when it came out. But it is none other than Lollipop Chainsaw. And he was a writer on there. And if you haven't heard about this, as you can see, she's a cheerleader with a chainsaw. But she's Juliet Starling. She's a high school student, and she undercovers the root of a zombie outbreak. And like I said, they're doing a remake, high def, total shebang of Lollipop Chainsaw. If you hadn't heard about that, I think it just came out, or the news just came out last week. I have never played that one. I do remember when it came out that it was one of those that I wanted to play. And it's probably one that I'll see if it's available for one of my systems. I'm slowly getting the older systems because there's a lot of games that out there, older games that I enjoy. And this is one that I will likely check out. Now, this next one I have not checked out. I don't even think I looked for a trailer. I did look for an image. And I found a couple, but they just really didn't work. But he was a creator along with his brother, Brian, which if you check out the episode of Into the Geekverse where David and I talk about great movies that you haven't seen, we talked about Brightburn. And we mentioned Brian Gunn. And at the time I said I didn't know if Brian was James's brother. Well, he is. James has like 3 or 4 brothers that are in the industry. And Brian co-created Brightburn, and then Sean, who I showed his picture earlier, and then I said that he was he's the second in command of the folks that kidnapped Quinn and Guardians of the Galaxy. Character actor, I'll throw him up again on the board here in case you're tuning in on YouTube. Sean Gunn, he's been in a lot of other stuff. I should have probably looked for some others. But he is in it, and he co-created it, and it's called PG Porn. Okay, PG Porn. Let that sink in for a minute. And you could probably come up with a tagline for it. It is for everyone who loves porn except for the sex. This only was on for a season. I have not, didn't jot down where you can find it. I should have, because if it's for everyone who loves porn except for the sex, well, that just means nudity to me. And I'll tune in for some nudity, but if it's TV series, probably not no nudity. You probably just got a lot of innuendo and stuff. But knowing James Gunn, there could be a lot of fun stuff in there. And even though it was only a season, you know, TV is fickle. TV is very, very fickle. And if something isn't, doesn't take off like gangbusters in the first month or first season, then it doesn't likely get picked up for a second, with few exceptions. Now, I should have jotted down each of the years for these, but I think I am still in chronological order. The next one, this one is one that I saw a long time ago, and again, had no clue that James Gunn did it, and that is Slither. Now, if you didn't see this one, it came out in 2006, 16 freaking years ago. James Gunn is the writer and the director on it. And it's when a meteor hits a small little town and it has a parasitic alien in it, and it takes over the town, turns residents into zombies and mutant monsters. And it was funny because when I saw this, saw that this was by James Gunn, I was like, man, I remember this being good, campy fun. And then as I was doing the research for the show, I found a still, and it pretty much confirmed that this is good, campy fun, because this photo up on the screen, folks, is none other than Michael Rooker. Now, Michael Rooker was in Belko, Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the one, I can't remember his name, but he does the whistling with the arrow. He was in Brightburn. He was Merle Dixon in The Walking Dead, Daryl's brother. And this is him after the parasite gets him. And if you know who I'm talking about, you can see the resemblance there for those tuned in on the live YouTube show or checking it out on YouTube after the fact. But yeah, I had no idea that he had done this one. And this is probably, besides Bellco Experiment, this is his most recent horror, but it's damn sure not his only one, because again, another one that I've seen. Now, I'm going to be honest. When I saw this one, I saw it back when I didn't see it at the theater, so probably saw when it came out on Blu-ray or HBO or whatever at the time. But he did the Dawn of the Dead remake, which of course is the George Romero classic. But and it's not a remake, it's kind of a retelling, a revamping, because it's not the same black and white Dawn of the Dead. This one is James wrote, but he did not direct. Actually, none other than Zack Snyder directed this one. This made me want to go and look up all the stuff that Zack Snyder wrote, directed, what have you. And I wish I would have, because that would have rounded out this show tonight really, really well. But yeah, and what I was saying about being honest, when I saw this one back in the day, I wasn't a big fan. This has Mekhi Phifer in it, Ving Rhames, several other great actors, but it takes place in a shopping mall. And I was a fan of the classic, of the George Romero classic. I love the zombie movies, and this one was okay, but I just wasn't a fan. And in fact, I haven't seen it again since then. But now that I know that Mr. Gunn wrote it, then it's something that I'm gonna have to check out. And if you're looking for it, you can find this. This is the unrated director's cut that I snagged. I don't know if you can zoom in and see the different photos. This is, like I said, the unwrapped DVD or Blu-ray. But Dawn of the Dead, it's not a bad watch. It's worth a watch if you haven't seen it. But it's just at the time it wasn't something that I loved. You Snyder fans out there, which I am a part of, I love the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, and there's a few others of his that I like. But Dawn of the Dead, that is one, like I said, that he did the screen, or I didn't say, he did the screenplay for. He didn't direct, and of course he didn't write it because Romero did. And Zack Snyder directed it. And then we kind of go off track for a minute. I had no freaking clue James Gunn wrote these. He wrote Scooby Doo and Scooby Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. I did see the first one. I have to say I enjoyed it. The guy who plays Shaggy, who was in Scream and a lot of other movies, what's her name? Melissa Joan Hart, I think. I may have that wrong. I won't guesstimate on who else is in there, but it was fun. But I never saw Scooby Doo 2, but those are both written by James Gunn. And so, as you can see, just from this short list or what we've gone over so far, he's kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to writing. He has done horror, he's done superhero, he has done suspense, he's done video games, and there's still several more that we've got to go, or a few more that we got to go. But like I said, with me just going point to point to point here, this is going to be a pretty quick show. It'll probably be about a half of a show, or half an hour show, so half a show. But there's a couple coming up that I have not seen, or excuse me, one that I've seen, one that I haven't seen, and the one that I have seen is definitely worth the watch, and that is 13 Ghosts. Now, the only thing here is that James Gunn is only listed as a writer of additional content, and it says he's uncredited. So I'm not sure what hand he had in this. Did he do some rewrites on it right before the end? Did he add additional scenes? What have you? But 13 Ghosts, man, again, another one I hadn't seen in quite some time. But I do remember enjoying this one. And once I reread the synopsis, it reminded me how great it was. And it's a rich collector dies. He leaves his estate to his two children, one of them of which I believe plays Shaggy in the Scooby Doo movies. I'm almost positive. But they go in, basically it's not the, spend a night in my mansion and you get all my money, but it's something like that. They have to go in, but they bring a ghost hunter, a ghost sympathizer, I guess you would say. I don't know what you'd call her. And a lawyer, and then I forget who else, but there's several of these people that come into the mansion. And unfortunately, it's a beautiful glass house, but it has shifting walls and all kinds of stuff, and because it's a prison to 12 ghosts. And his the people that are there with his children, they get trapped in it by a machine that's designed by the devil and powered by the dead. And the ultimate goal is to open the eye of hell. This definitely, after knowing everything that James Gunn has done, it sounds like something that he could have done, but I don't know to the extent of what rewrites he had. Mr. Gunn, if you're out there, of course, David and I would love an interview with you to discuss some of these, man, because, I've been a fan of Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad, but I have definitely been a fan without knowing it for a while, too. And then lastly, as far as what has been done here, is one that I have not seen and I hadn't even heard of until I started doing this stuff for the show, and that's called The Specials. Now, this one stars Rob Lowe, Jamie Kennedy, and James Gunn himself even plays Minute Man, which if I could play the trailer, I would here, folks, because there's some funny damn parts in it. This was released 22 years ago, back in 2000. It's written by James Gunn. I don't believe it was directed by him. Melissa Joan Hart is in it, which she's Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I'm not sure if she's the same one that's in Scooby Doo. I think it's correct, but I'm not sure. But what's funny is that this is the Specials are America's 7th best superhero team, and it's a group of oddballs and geeks, and that's totally up Geek Insider and into the Geekverse's realm, alley, whatever you want to call it. And so this is, I haven't looked up to see where I can get it. I didn't if I had a chance today, I would have watched it before the show, because like I said, I just watched Super last week. But we get to spend, from what I've read, we spend a day in the life of that 7th best superhero team. And it's right as they're trying to navigate having a new member join the team, as well as they're getting their own line of action figures released. But as it's being released, or supposed to be being revealed, they find out that the toy company went a completely different way. And then I'm not sure what happens there. We see Rob Lowe and here, let me, for those of you tuned in on the YouTube, there's Rob Lowe with just a kind of a Nightwing-esque looking mask going on. And then there's Jamie Kennedy looking kind of like Nightcrawler. But this one, it looks fun. If you go watch the trailer, you have to look up the Specials movie trailer, and it'll pull this up. It's funny. It looks campy and fun with a healthy dose of, Gunn-esque comedy and violence. It's definitely something that I'm going to check out sooner rather than later. But the other than that, those were the core ones. There's others that he has written or directed or wrote the screenplay for, but those were the core ones that really jumped out to me. And just to kind of show his versatility, upcoming, he wrote the screenplay, or is writing the screenplay for the animated Coyote versus Acme, which of course is Wile E. Coyote from the Roadrunner cartoons versus Acme. There's not much information out there. There's not even any artwork or trailer or anything. I believe it's supposed to be out in 2023. It's the first Looney Tunes film to be in 3D or anime. I've heard live action and I've heard animated. From what I'm catching, it's going to be animated. But it's the first Looney Tunes film to be in 3D, Real D 3D, and Max 3D. And so that could be something cool to check out. I love me some Looney Tunes. Not the watered down version of today, but the original. But the other thing that he has upcoming, and folks, I'm getting reports that my mic may be cutting in and out. I'm not getting notification of that, but if it's cutting in and out for you, I deeply apologize. I've got to figure out something. I got to get a repeater or something, because I know that happens quite often. But anyway, the last thing that I found for his upcoming stuff, and this one, man, I am really hoping that this is going the more serious route as opposed to the campy route, because we've already been there, done that with this. And what I'm seeing is that he is one of the writers for a new TV series of Starsky and Hutch. Now, Starsky and Hutch, oh, I didn't even load the images. Well, I had images, I just forgot to load them for the original, which was this old 1970s, I believe. It's a cop show. It took itself serious. Shouldn't have, probably, but it took itself serious. It's two cops. They had a badass Challenger, I think it was, and it was a fun show, TV show, when it was back on. This is pre-Miami Vice, and of course Law and Order and all of that. But then, Owen Wilson and dude from Night at the Museum, I can't think of his name, but they starred in a movie remake of it, and that was total camp. But James Gunn is one of the writers for the new TV series. I believe it was slated for next year, but I'm not seeing a whole bunch of stuff about it yet. So it may be one of those that's just kind of in the creative process right now. But like I said, this definitely isn't all of James Gunn's library. There's other movies, other TV shows he's done as far as writer, producer, director, even starring in. Like I said, he's in that one early on. What did I say? It was The Specials. And you'll even see him in a trailer, in the trailer. He's Minute Man, not Minute Man, and that'll make sense when you see the trailer. But this was 22 years ago, so of course the man is very young. I did not even recognize him when I first saw the trailer. Then when I started writing everything up and figured out that he was in it, then I started laughing, had to see it again. But folks, that is it. Like I said, I figured this would be about a half of a chunk of a show, because David's the other half. And unfortunately, David had technical difficulties. He will be back next week. And of course, that's what I want to bring up next. Next week, we are having a string of special guests. At least two. There will probably, or not two next week, there will be two in a row. We're bringing a special guest every week, especially for September, because we have a new official sponsor of the show starting up in September, Colgate. And they are, we're doing a whole gaming thing with them. And so we're bringing on guests from the gaming industry or gaming related. And our first guest next week is Jordan Muriello. And he is the CEO of More Yellow, which they're the top gaming influencer agency in the country. If you're a gamer and you're wanting to break into being an influencer, whether it's on YouTube or on, I forget the name of it right now, but any of the apps where you can be an influencer, or Twitch, where people are watching you play video games, then you want to tune in next week, because Jordan is going to discuss what it takes to become an influencer, how you can become an influencer, and all the ins and outs of being an influencer. And then the week after that, 2 weeks from tonight, we have graphic novelist Royce Okupe. And I lied, I said video games. This is actually, we have three others scheduled for, or in the works for September as far as the gaming industry. But this one, we definitely wanted to get in because it's Royce Okupe. He is the author of several interconnected projects that are set in his Afrocentric unique universe, including Iwana, Child of Wonder, which is now being adapted as a series for HBO Max and Cartoon Network. with Lion Forge Animation producing, and Roy serving as executive producer, director, and co-creator. We're going to sit down with Roy to discuss the depth of accomplishing and sustaining an Afro-futuristic universe that not only exists but thrives on spectators' exploration of a culture unknown to them, and how his new 10-book deal with Dark Horse Comics has inspired creators to take notice of diversity in the market, and why he decided to trust his publisher, which took his material seriously and believed in his message. What his accomplishments mean for aspiring storytellers that hope to highlight their cultural backgrounds through the lens of animation. And so we got a gaming CEO or gaming influencer CEO next week. We've got a graphic novelist and executive producer the next week. I do have two or three irons in the fire regarding some other special guests in the gaming industry, including some influencers themselves, as well as a couple of other CEOs in the gaming industry for various companies. One also was a writer for Nintendo Magazine, Xbox, and several others. So stay tuned for news on that. But that's going to do it for me, folks. We're only in 20 minutes early, but make sure you tune in next week. The next week, of course, help us grow the channel by sharing this out, spreading the word, subscribing to the channel, hitting those like buttons. And that's going to do it for me, folks. You've been listening to Into the Geekverse, a Geek Insider production. Subscribe to the Geek Insider podcast on your favorite listening app, or join us live on YouTube and Facebook every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Central. Visit geekinsider.com for tons of great geek content, and be sure to sign up for the newsletter. We also have advertising opportunities for the website, newsletter, and podcast. And for more information, you can contact advertising at geekinsider.com. As always, this show is dedicated to our cohort and friend, Meredith Locker. Rest in peace, Meredith. We'll see you next week, folks, and you better be there, or we might just have to revoke your geek card. Have a great weekend, everyone. Not weekend. I wish the weekend was starting. Take care, everyone. See you next week.